What's up guys, Jivan back with another video. I'm not gonna lie, first week of the solo cash cup did not go the best for me. I placed around 1300th place on East and top 800 on West, which may not seem horrible, but I played horrible in my eyes. But I'm not even upset about it because I know how to counter a bad week and come back the next week. The biggest thing that helps me out is checking out the top placing players. So what I did was for 3 hours, I sat down and I watched a bunch of the top placing players that posted on YouTube. So I ended up watching Noah Rayleigh place first place, Benji Fishy second, Mr. Savage fourth on West servers, and Moose on West servers taking home first. But before you do that, you should either watch back your gameplay or think about it and think about what went wrong in your games. That way you can look for that in the pro players' gameplay and see how they handled the situations that you got yourself in. For me, it was mostly having trouble finding good lairs. I kept getting congested and putting myself in a bad spot. So when I was watching these top placing players, I was looking for how they choose their lairs, how they go for high ground, and simply how they set themselves up to get first place in the solo cash cup. Anyways, longest intro I've ever done. In this video, you're going to be seeing my win on East and my win on West, while we talk about the best way to approach a cash cup, and I'll be telling you what I learned from watching these top placing pros. Before we hop into it, please consider using code JivanTV in the Fortnite item shop, or at least make sure you're using somebody's code because it helps us out a ton. Without further ado, let's get into this video. So first off, the format is very placement based. Almost all the points are in that top 10 area though, so you definitely want to be playing for the dub. However, first game you should be W King. All the top placing pros W keyed like crazy their first game. So it goes W key first game, play placement for the rest of the tourney. If you have an extra game at the end of the tourney and you're not going to have time to play it, you can decide whether or not you want to W key that game. Play off your strengths. If you're not the best W keyer, don't W key that last game at the end of the tourney. One thing to keep in mind is that here on out, the rest of the season is champs only solo cash cups, and it is harder to get to champs this season. So I have a feeling the W key games are not going to be that crazy at the start of each cash cup, simply because we're going into lobbies with only champs players and the fights might be kinda difficult. I'm still going to try to key, but you can decide for yourself. Usually I end the tourney with extra games, so might as well key the first one, right? Regarding playstyle in a cash cup, you typically want to try to stay away from the center of the map, unless if that's where the zone pulls. Reason is, if you go to the center of the map, there's going to be players all over you. And if you get in a fight there, third parties are going to be unreal. So I usually try to look for fights on the outside of the map rather than the center. In my games where I'm trying to play out those placement points, I rotate early and try to predict where the zone's going to pull. If it pulls far in one direction, it's usually going to pull far in that direction again. So I try to rotate as early as possible once I get my loot up and get to where I think the second zone is going to pull so I can already be in a good position. And that's how I play really consistent games and get to endgame a lot. Now at the start of the video, I said I had a really bad solo cash cup week 1, which is 100% okay. Something you gotta know is that even pro players that place first in solo cash cups will have one good week, and then the next week they might do terrible and get like 5,000th place. The reason that happens is because they take risks in their cash cup. They'll W key like crazy first game, and if they have a bad W key game, they'll W key the next one until they get that pop-off game. And sometimes they might just not be on their game and they throw away so many games by trying to W key, and it'll cause them to place 5,000th place. But the next week they'll come back and they'll have a really good W key game first game, and they'll take first place in that solo cash cup. That's why you shouldn't feel bad about yourself if you have a bad week in the cash cup. Like, the pro players have bad weeks all the time. It's just about showing up that next week with good energy and going at it again. Next thing to keep in mind in a solo cash cup is knowing your elo. This means knowing the skill level of your lobby. Typically I just compare my points with the leaderboard, see how far I am behind. If I'm like top 1000, the lobbies are going to be decently stacked. But if I'm top 100, they're going to be very stacked and I may need Storm Surge. And if I'm like top 10,000, I'm way down on the leaderboard, then that's the type of lobby I may want to W key a little bit. So basically, just knowing the skill level of your lobby is the way you can gauge what type of playstyle you should be playing in that lobby. Another thing you should keep in mind is that it's never too late to come back in a cash cup. So I was streaming the West Cash Cup the other day. I went through 3 games, my vibes were way down. And so I ended up just ending stream and I went and ate some food, just put my brain back together. And then it was like an hour into the tourney, I had 7 games, hardly any points. I decided I was gonna hop back in the tourney. You know, I got my vibes back up, that's the most important thing. And I went back in, got a big dub, which you're seeing on screen right now. And after that game, I was top 200 in the tourney. 1 game, all it took to come back. The rest of the tourney I didn't do the best, but we placed top 800th in basically 2 hours of gameplay. So all I'm saying is, it's never too late to come back in a solo tourney. Biggest thing is, make sure you're having fun with the game because that's the most important thing. If you're having a bad time, take a break, like I did. Now, last thing I want to talk about before we get into the pro player VOD review is how I prepare for solo cash cups. Funny enough, one of my favorite things to do to prepare for a tourney is VOD review pro players right before the tourney starts or the night before. I'll pick out one tournament video on YouTube, just watch their gameplay, vibe with it, figure out what they did, and get in the right mindset to do my best in the solo cash cup by watching that video. If you guys are looking for a video to watch this weekend, I recommend watching Noah Rayleigh's first place in the solo cash cup. That was a great video. Which leads me to the next portion of this video, the pro player VOD reviews. We're actually going to start with Noah Rayleigh. First thing about his tournament is he obviously heavily W keyed his first game. If you struggle with the W keying, I would definitely recommend watching his first game. Same with every single person in this video that I'm about to talk about. You can learn so much from watching people's W key games in a cash cup because they're on their best game using their best techniques, and there's a lot to learn from it. The next big thing about Noah Rayleigh is that he was sending high ground almost every single late game, which is how he won 4 out of 9 games, because he sent high ground and he did it very, very safely. What you're seeing on screen is what he would do. He would slowly build up to high ground, try to get a fry on them, and just keep the pressure on while building up to it. So many times high ground would just drop down, free high ground for him, free dub for him. And on top of that, he would try to have a harpoon every single game on high ground so he could get easy refreshes and hold it with no problem. Even one game he had 200 mats and he still went for high ground, just full sent it. My perspective, I usually wait till I have like 700 mats to go for high ground, but after watching his game, I'm going to be going for high ground a lot more. A lot. I'm going to keep working on that aspect of my game because I can't tell you how many times I died from getting congested on the mid ground. It was terrible. You don't got to worry about that on high ground. And then when he's on high ground, obviously he just endless sprays at the people below him. There was one game, he was running out of AR ammo and it was last moving zone, so he just dropped down, fragged with his shotgun, and got the dub. It was just important for him to keep that pressure on, and that's what gave him the win. Anyways, if you're looking to get better at high ground play, definitely watch his tourney because he went for high ground all the time and did it in a very smart way. Definitely recommend checking it out. But next up, we got Benji Fitchy's second place. So Benji's a really aggressive player. Obviously, he W keyed his first game, but in those stacked lobbies, something I noticed him do a lot was reposition before moving zone even started. This would give him a better position to frag out, get kills, and a better position to launch pad. A lot of times, moving zone will about to be happening and I'll just stay put in my box and wait to find a place to launch pad, but he immediately goes, repositions, frags out on backside of zone, and is in a good spot to launch pad, and doesn't even have to worry about not getting that launch pad off. That was really smart. Another thing I noticed him do is that when he saw loot and he had a harpoon and it was too far away, he would immediately tunnel towards it. He didn't care that somebody else might scoop it away from him, he just tunneled straight to it right away as soon as he saw that loot. No hesitation, and I like that. I'm gonna start doing that. And Benji also had some crazy high ground takes as well. One of them was a flopper play in Storm, which was so IQ. He was in a bit of a pickle, but he had so many floppers, and so he just sat in Storm, slowly crept his way behind high ground, got a pump on high ground, easy height. If you ever have floppers like that, you can get free high ground by doing this. Another way he took high ground was launching all the way to frontside, immediately spraying back at high ground, and then just had to crank up and it was his. The thing that makes Benji so dangerous is the lack of hesitation. When he has a play, he goes for it. And I may just be speaking for myself, but I think a lot of us struggle with that firm decision making, the lack of hesitation. That's what makes him so dangerous. One last thing is that when he's on high ground, he'll usually try to stay ahead and then he'll frag the backside of zone. That's the way to get the most kills possible. He was looking at backside a lot during this tourney. Now, the last two people I VOD reviewed, Mr. Savage and Moose, I didn't write as many notes down for these. Mr. Savage, he literally placed on West by doing that shadow flopper play, where you get in shadow form, hit a launch pad, fly in the air. He was farming placement with that. One thing I picked out from Mr. Savage's gameplay was this half and half rotate. I've been struggling with half and half rotates this season. I don't know why. Probably because I don't have cows anymore. But he's on high ping and he still manages to pull this off perfectly. He blocks every angle he possibly could be shot from so well here, and just sets up a perfect path for him to get into zone. Mr. Savage IQ levels there were 10 billion. And then we got Moose, who dropped a 28 kill win his first game. That's what really set him apart from everybody. So he's another one you could check out if you want to check out first game W Kian, because he definitely played that first game really well. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, sub if you're new. Use code JivanTV and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.